Morning. We are on the last Ois Hey. In the booklet, we're on page 9. And this part of the mind is talking about what does a person do if they realize that they have yeshus, and how do I overcome it? So he says it depends on where the yeshus is coming from. If a person feels that his yeshus is coming from, it's coming from the fact that I've learned so much Torah, so he gave us a thought process, how a person could think about it and realize that this is not a reason to feel arrogant. On the contrary, this should humble him. On the other hand, there's a possibility that the yeshus is not because of learning Torah, it's just something that he has a coarse body. There's certain people that have a coarse body, and certain people have a more refined body. For example, we're going to learn next week, Pasha Shmos, that Moshe Rabbeinu, when he was born, it says in the Chumash, and they saw that he was good. What does Rashi say? That the whole house was filled with light. In fact, who gave the name Moshe? Batya, the daughter of Paro. What was his name before that? What did his mother call him? He was already around for 3 months before she found him. He must have had a name. So in the Medrash it says, one opinion at least, that his name was Tuvia. Tov Ka is good to Hashem, but Tov is because it says in the Chumash, when he was born, they saw that he was good. The house became filled with light. What does it mean filled with light? Does it mean physical light? First of all, it could mean physical light. But if there was physical light, it was a manifestation of spiritual light. He didn't do anything yet. He didn't daven, he didn't learn, he didn't do mitzvahs. He was just an infant, he was just born. How could it be the spiritual light? So obviously it means his neshama was a great neshama. He was the neshama of Moshe Rabbeinu, but his body was so refined that it didn't block the light of his neshama. It's like the difference between having a brilliant light in a room that has a wall blocking, or the wall is made out of glass. There is a wall, but if it's glass, it's transparent. Moshe Rabbeinu's neshama was refined and transparent. So we are all born with a body that how coarse and how refined, which means how much does it block and how much is it transparent, that depends on our shlichus, what Hashem wants us to do, what our challenges are. So there could be a person that he was born or she was born with a coarse body. So that's sort of something natural in me that leads me to feel the self-obsession and involved with self. So therefore, it's not that thought process which he gave in the beginning doesn't apply. So this person needs to do something to crush that arrogance that's there. So we said years ago, it was done by physically denying the body its pleasures. And today, we're not allowed to do anything that denies the body what it needs. Of course, number one, it means not to indulge in physical pleasure. We said this many times, that even though today we make sure to take care of our eating and our sleeping and everything we do, there was once a chassid, who was a very big chassid, and he spent his whole life on self-refinement, davening, learning, and working on himself. Not just davening, learning, but working on refining himself. And as a result of that, he didn't take care of his eating, didn't take care of his sleeping, just learning and davening as much as he can. When he was older, he was weaker, and there was a Farbrengen, and he said, I really regret all these 40 years that I worked so hard on self-refinement. Everybody's looking at him, regret? How could you regret that? I mean, it's very difficult to do it, but once you do it, why would you regret it? So he said, because obviously by all the things that I did, I've made my body weaker. Had I taken more care of my body, I probably would have been healthier. And even if I would have lived one more day and put on tefillin one more time, tefillin one day is more than 40 years of self-refinement. The other chassid wanted to make him feel good and said, yeah, but it takes 40 years of self-refinement to be able to appreciate one time putting on film like that, to get that feel, to get that sense. So we didn't do anything that interferes with our health because that's going to interfere with our ruchnius. And if you remember the quote from the Maggid, we mentioned this Tishrei time, that a little hole in the body, a little puncture in the body means a little injury to the body. If we do that to ourselves, chas v'shalom, is a huge injury to the soul. So we're not allowed to do that. But indulging in physical pleasure, that we can all refrain from. That's number one. And number two, there are other ways of crushing the yeshus, like I said yesterday, not in a physical way, but I have a strong desire for something, and I know it's very strong, and I don't allow myself, and that's also a way of crushing that part of me, that yeshus in me, that wants everything so much. So now we're going to start with the line that begins, or let's say ends with Lech Lecha. It's about 10 lines from the top, ends with the word Lech Lecha. So this is, as we spoke about this many times, the structure of a mimer. It starts with a pasuk, raises a number of questions on the pasuk, then goes off to explain something, and then comes back and explains the pasuk and answers the questions. So the initial pasuk of this mimer was Lech Lecha vayema Hashem al Avram, Lech Lecha miyartzecha milartecha beisavicha. And the question that he asked was the order. First, the person goes away from the house of his father. Then he goes away from the neighborhood. And then he goes away from the whole country. And here the order is reverse. In order for there should be Lech Lecha in davening, which means go to you. That during davening, I'll be able to connect the conscious part of my neshama that's down here with the source of my neshama that up's there. I should reach a point that I put aside my will completely in a way that it transcends logic. I'm just totally, completely devoted and dedicated to Hashem. How can I accomplish that? Through aretz, through humility. Which means humility. Like it says in the Gemara, one can't start davening only with the heaviness of the head. What does heaviness of the head mean? Pirush Rashi, achna b'shiflus, humility. It's interesting. I don't know if you ever noticed it, but when the Shulchan Aruch or Gemara talk about someone who's going to daven, lead the davening, the chazan, it says the person, doesn't say the person who's going to go to the amud. It's called an amud. Amud means the what do they call it? In front of the shul, where there is a little stand where the chazan stands there when he davens. It always says the word yored lifnei hateva. He goes down to the teva. Why is that? Because the way shuls were built years ago, I don't know when it stopped and why it stopped, but the way shuls were built years ago was that whoever davened for the amud, it was a little bit lower than the rest of the shul. It went down a step. When you read from the Torah, you go up on they say aliyah, you're going up on a platform. So one of the reasons why you go down, because of this, it says we don't start davening only with humility. So therefore, physically, it was arranged that when a person goes to daven, it would be stepping down, especially the chazan who is representing the whole congregation. So that's why the Eibusha said, Avram Lech Lecha, that in his avodah he should move forward to his source of his neshama by elevating the sparks in this world. So therefore he had to travel to different places. He had to travel to different countries because by going to these places, he elevated the sparks that were there. But in order to go to those places and to connect to Hashem, he has to leave the place where he was. In other words, if I want to reach a higher place, I have to be ready to let go of the lower place. There's a story with the Rebbe Rashab that there was once a time where he was traveling and he wasn't in the city of Lubavitch during the Yom Tov of Purim. He was someplace else. There weren't a lot of Chassidim there, but there was some. And the previous Rebbe, his son, said to his father, it's Purim, maybe you'll come out and have a Farbrengen. Usually that's in Lubavitch, but this was outside of Lubavitch. So he said no. A little while later, he got a telegram. He was the principal of the yeshiva in Lubavitch. He got a telegram, and the telegram was a report of the students. They used to give a very monthly report, I think, a very regular report of each student, how they're doing, how they're progressing. And it was a very good report. A lot of good news in that report. So he decided to go into his father and give him the good news. And he saw that his father, the Rebbe Rashab, was very, very happy to hear about this student, that student, the other student. Once he saw that his father was such a good frame of mind, he said to him, maybe he'll come out in Farbrengen. And this time he said, yeah, okay. So he came out to Farbrengen, and the Farbrengen was something really out of the ordinary. A lot of interesting things happened. And that Farbrengen, the Rebbe Rashab himself drank a lot of l'chaim. And at one point he said, almost like an announcement, who wants to get on my wagon? What does the wagon look like? The wagon of Chassidus. So now Chassidus has two parts to it. One is the intellectual, and the other is the avodah, the hard work of self-refinement. So he said, my wagon is decorated with the most beautiful, brilliant, magnificent, deep, philosophical concepts of Chassidus. And it's saturated with the tears and sweat of avodah. One of the Chassidim started to cry. He said, Rebbe, where are the steps to your wagon? The Rebbe said, you're right. You can't get into the wagon without steps. There's 4 steps to the wagon. 2 steps to get off the ground and 2 steps to get into the wagon. In other words, you can't go to Matan Torah unless you go out of Mitzrayim. So first you have to step out of where I was before, and then I can step in to the new place where I'm going. This applies to a person who is changing completely, but it also applies to every person. Even as we progress, we go from one level to the next. I have to let go of where I was, and only then can I enter the new stage, the new place. So therefore, Hashem told Avraham Avinu, you want to go to the place that I will show you? Lech lecha me'artzecha me'ladecha me'sabicha. You have to let go of where you were. And what is it? What are the 3 things? The order is the order of how a person is supposed to serve Hashem and how a person works on self-refinement. The teves, the first thing to let go of is the yitzia me'artzecha, to go away from your land. We learned in the whole Maimer that the land is a very good thing and it's a major thing, and that's what helps you to davening. But that's Eretz Yisrael, that's the Holy Land. But your land is land of the Umazeh, the land of Klippa. I have to step out of the land of Klippa, and then I can go into the land of Kedusha. The Hashem sheyesh Eretz b'Kedusha, just like there's land in Kedusha, Shunya Bittul, and that's humility. Kein yesh Eretz b'Umazeh. But Eretz means to be low. So why is that Klippa? To be low means to be humble. No, there could be low in a negative way. As it's written, they found a valley in the land of Shinar, which is Babel. Babylon is Klippa. That's the country that destroyed The Beis Hamikdash destroyed Yerushalayim. Heipach halakus, the opposite of godliness. And he refers to it as a valley. That means it's something which is considered low and eretz, but in a negative way. And what is that? The eretz is hugami nashif. It's also low, but in this context, it's mashamash b'letzasmei lekabel madvorim adgashmim itanug elam hazda. In this context, low means the person degrades himself. He is a human being. He is a yid that has a neshama. He's the highest sort of category, the highest level in creation, and he lowers himself to the level of medaber. Doimem, tzameach, or chai. He degrades himself, and he becomes the recipient. That where does he get pleasure from? From the things that are lower than him. The Gemara refers to Adam, a human being, as a B'chiran Abraham, the chosen of creation. So you would say this is the crown jewel of Hashem's creation, the human being. And he's the Medaber. He's much higher than Tzemeir, than the plant kingdom. He's higher than the animal kingdom. What is he doing? He's degrading himself, and he's being Mekabel from Tzemeir, from the plant kingdom. V'chai, and from the animal kingdom. And he's a shiflus. This is the degradation. So therefore, this is also called Eretz. I remember seeing, I don't remember where, in another mimer, where he says another example of Eretz, which would be Klippa, is when a person, humility is a positive thing. But when a person thinks of himself as nothing, have no self-worth, no self-esteem, and feels absolutely worthless, that's also for Klippa. It's a confusion. People think that this is humility, but it's not humility. This is a way of Klippa, getting a person into the worst kinds of situations. So we have to know our qualities, and we have to recognize them and use them. But we recognize that everything I have is from Hashem, so it doesn't make me feel arrogant. But that's another example of Eretz of Klippa. But here he's talking about degrading myself. And how am I degrading myself? I'm making the animal my mashpia, and I'm the makabel. I have a new mashpia. My mashpia is an ox, a bird, a chicken. My mashpia is a vegetable. Interesting, mashpia, a carrot stick. That wouldn't be too bad, carrot stick. However, it's interesting, even though we're saying that this is Eretz, I'm degrading myself, but the truth is, shiftless, this degradation actually comes as a result of arrogance. That because he's arrogant and he feels very high up in his own mind, therefore he can't control, he can't refrain himself from his desire, from his burning desire, just like an animal. An animal has only one interest, and that's all the bodily pleasures. That's his essence. Animals don't have anything higher than the physical pleasure of physical things, whether it's eating or sleeping or drinking or whatever the animal does. And that's this person as well. That even though he knows there's a higher purpose, but the desire for these things take him over. So that means that it's an interesting scenario. He's degrading himself, but his degradation is a result of his arrogance. So a person has to leave the Eretz Lumazeh. That's the first step, which means Eretz the Kedusha. He should be Eretz in a Kedushitic way, which is Shiflus the Kedusha. And once I'll have humility, then I will be able to step out of those things of degrading myself, because as a humble person, I'll be able to discipline myself, I'll be able to control myself, and I'll know to go after things that have real meaning and purpose and not after things that are degrading me. What's the next thing? Miladetecha. So in Hebrew, the word limud, literally, usually it's used as learning, but sometimes, even in the literal meaning, Limud could mean, and it's used in that context, as a habit. When a person makes a habit of something. To go out of our habits, what does that mean? Called in mitzvahs and midas teves, whatever a person does, whether it's studying Torah, or it's observing mitzvahs, or acting in a way which positive midas towards other people, to be giving, to be caring, outside the hergel. It shouldn't be just something that it's a habit that I've been doing this. I continue. I daven every day. I put on tefillin every day. I give tzedakah, put the money into a pushka. Whatever I do should be serving Hashem. The motivation should be to serve Hashem. It shouldn't be just something that it's out of routine. I do this, I continue doing it. Even though that in itself is not the worst thing, but we know that number one, it's not real serving Hashem. It's just I got myself into a certain track and I keep doing it. And the second thing is ultimately such kind of serving Hashem will not last. Eventually, somewhere along the line where there'll be a little bit of a test, the person will deviate from the path because there's no real chayis and avodah in what they're doing. So it's interesting, even if a person is doing all the right things, davening and learning, but if they're not going, if they're not doing it, and they're not being motivated because it's avodah, but they're just doing it because it's their nature, it's not the real deep way of serving Hashem. And the third thing is in Beis Avicha, hut inyan tikkun hamoichin. We know that in Chassidus, one of the first things we find in Tanya is that the intellect is called the parents, because intellect gives birth to emotion. So emotion are the children, intellect are the parents. So when it says here, go away from your father's home, means go away from your intellect. What does that mean? Aren't we supposed to use the intellect? Aren't we supposed to be studying Torah day and night? And aren't we supposed to be trying to understand as much as we can? And especially, that's what Chabad is all about, the intellect. What does it mean going away from your intellect? Finishes with the words, Shakol Sichlei Yemasu L'Torah Mitzvahs, that his intellect should be dedicated exclusively for Torah and mitzvahs, and serving Hashem with my heart. So going away from my intellect means not going away from intellect, going away from my intellect. In other words, my dedication to Hashem is not based because I understand that this is right and I understand that that's wrong, but it's based on my total dedication to Hashem, which transcends intellect. The reason why I'm learning and understanding and using my brain is so that that part of me should also be permeated with serving Hashem, that the intellect should understand and the intellect should be connected to Hashem, but not that my connection to Hashem is dependent on the intellect. Because generally speaking, the seichel in a person, the intellect in a person wants what's going to give me pleasure, what's going to make me feel good. And very often that clashes with what it is that's emes and what Hashem wants. Because the nefesh of Bahamas has its own desires and its own interests and has its own agenda. And if I'll allow my seichel just to follow logic, then I could very easily end up explaining and justifying and rationalizing that whatever things I want to do would make sense to me. So therefore, we have to give away my seichel, which means my seichel is dedicated, that my learning and understanding is to understand what Hashem is saying, and not challenging Hashem, not challenging Torah, but understanding that whatever Hashem says is emes. And I'm using my intellect that what Hashem says, which is emes, I want it to penetrate in a deeper way. That's why I want to understand it, not because I'm challenging whether Hashem is right or not.
Wait, you're not challenging if Hashem is right or not. You're trying to process it and understand it in a deeper way.
Right. In other words, let's say I do a mitzvah. I don't understand it. It doesn't make sense to me. So I do the mitzvah. It means I'm doing it with my hands. I'm doing it with my feet because that's involved. But my intellect is not involved because I don't really get it. So my intellect, I tell my intellect, okay, you don't get it. So just stand at the side and let me do what I have to do. If I understand it and it's exciting in my mind, then I'm involving my intellect in my serving Hashem. So that's why I want to get my intellect involved, not because I have to have my intellect accepted before I can commit myself to it. Naturally, when a person is first approaching Yiddishkeit, there's no other way. Of course, it starts that way. But I think most people will tell you that when they get involved in Yiddishkeit, they're asking questions, they tortured the rabbi, they tortured the rebbitzin, and they drove him crazy. And I look back now, I'm so embarrassed at all the questions that I asked. But then they'll tell you that once I got the answers, and once I got it, they'll tell you that it's clear to them that their commitment to Yiddishkeit, their connecting to Yiddishkeit is way beyond the answers to the questions, something deeper. It's like the answer to the question was a trigger to open something deeper up in me, which is deep, that transcends intellect. So why do I want to understand? I want to understand because I want to involve, imagine, my hands will serve Hashem, my feet will serve Hashem, and the best part of me, which is my brain, is out of the picture because I don't get it. We don't want that. So by learning Torah and learning the deeper meaning of mitzvahs and all that, I'm involving the best part of myself to also be there involved with Hashem. You know, it says in the Chumash that Cain killed Hevel because his sacrifice was accepted and Cain's was not. Why wasn't Cain's accepted? Anyone remember the reason?
He took from like the worst of what he had.
Right. I mean, Hevel said, let me take the best produce that I have and use it as a karmas to Hashem. And Cain said, well, this is going to get ruined anyways. Let me take not the good stuff. So there's a klal, it's in the Rambam, he uses these words, the Rebbe would quote this a lot. Kol chelev Hashem. When you bring a carbon, the fats is always goes to the mizbeach. You know, in a carbon, some of the meat is eaten by the kohanim. Sometimes part of the meat is eaten by the owner who brought the carbon, and some of it goes on the mizbeach, it's consumed by the fire. But the chelev, the fats, always goes on. So Rambam says, takes the word chelev, the fats, sometimes means the best part, the cream. What? Yeah. So the chelev, the best of everything. If I'm doing something for Shabbos, do the best. I have a guest in my house, give him the best. If I'm doing something for Hashem, do the best. So when it comes to this, we say the same thing. My hands are going to be dedicated to serve Hashem, my feet. But my seichel, I'll use that for business, I'll use that for other things. So the best part of me, I'm not giving away to Hashem. That's why we're involving our seichel. It should involve the best part of me. And also, it becomes much deeper if I can understand what I'm doing. My intellect is excited about what I'm doing. Okay, so with this, we finish the mimer. And we'll now do the questions. And then we'll do all the vocabulary. And then in next week, we're going to start a new mimer. What are we doing? We're going to do a mimer from the Rabbi Marash. It's a beautiful mimer about the connection between Rosh Chodesh and women, actually. Because Rosh Chodesh is a woman's yontif. And he explains, according to Chassidus, why. So, where are the questions in the booklet? It's page. So these are questions on hay. Page 25. So 5 minutes. And then we just learned it, so it won't be much of an accomplishment. Let's go to the vocabulary terms better. And then next week we'll go to this. So the vocabulary terms, I think we did Aleph, not only Aleph, right? Yeah. So let's do Beis. Pages 11 and 12. We'll give it 5 minutes and then we'll go over it together. Yeah.
Page 10.
11 and 12.
We did it? We did it. Page
We didn't do the first one?
No.
We didn't do any of the vocabulary?
No, we did the 15. Maybe I'm wrong, but.
You're probably right. Okay, so let's do page 10. Sorry. Change of plans
Sorry.
for the second time. We'll do page 10, which is the first place, the vocabulary terms. Oh, wait a second, I have the wrong page. For the third time. Cold water is not like coffee. Okay. I'm looking for page 15. This is another thing which I don't do it in class, but it would be a nice thing if you do yourself. This is a collection that I have on page 10, 11, 12. It's a collection of different phrases and quotes that are found in the Maimer. And each one of them, you have that quote the way it is understood literally, and then you have the way they quote the way it's explained according to Chassidus. I used to do that as well, but then it just took too long, so you can do it yourself. But it helps a lot when you're davening, you come across one of the sayings of Chazal, and you know the simple meaning, and then you know the deeper meaning. But we're going to page 15. Did we do 15?
16 and 17. We started on 12. We did 15. Yeah, we did 16.
Okay, so for the fourth change, we're up to 16. Where are we going next? Hey, is this the right Maimer? Yeah. Okay, so it's page 16 in Ois Beis. That's what you have. You have notes on that or not? No. Okay. So Ois Beis, page 16. We already used up 3 minutes of the 5 minutes, so we're left with 2 minutes. Okay, let's do it together. Number 19 means Mamaylo Lamata. What does that mean? From above to below. That direction. Mamata Lamayla. Right. And the analogy that he gave, you always think of this, it'll help, of two people that one is standing on a mountain and one is standing on the bottom, that there are two ways that they can connect. Either the person on top comes down to meet, or the person on the bottom climbs up to the one on top to meet with him. So the same is with Hashem and us, with godliness and the person. Sulam dot sulusa. It's Aramaic. What does it mean? What? Ladder is the first word. The next two words are Aramaic. It's Aramaic. Sulusa is the Aramaic word for davening. So the Zohar says, Sulam, the ladder, this is Sulusa, davening. Number 2, Shviras HaKelim is the breaking of the vessels in the world of Tohu. 23 and 24 is something which you might find quite often in the Maimer. Zayin Tachtenim, the 7 low ones or the 3 higher ones. What does that mean? Right. The 7 lower ones are the 7 midos. The 3 first or earlier ones are Chachma, Bina, and Das, the intellect. Sometimes that's the way it's referred to. Number 25. Chamisha Shemesh Nikru Lo. Naran Chai. Nefesh Ruch Neshama Chai Yechida. What is this phrase? What? The neshama has 5 names. When you look in the Medrash, you just know that it has 5 different names. But the deeper explanation is it has 5 names because there are 5 layers of depth to the neshama. And often you'll find this acronym, but it's spelled out. It's Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chaya, and Yechida. 26, Keser. What's the simple meaning of Keser? Crown. And in the context of spheros, Keser is the level that's higher than the 10 spheres. 27, again Aramaic. Da, he, tara Allah. Can't expect you to remember it, but da means this is, the gate to go up. It's similar a little bit to the Hebrew. In other words, where Yaakov was, that was the gate to go up to Shemayim. 28, when it says Ha'aretz Shalamata, what is it referring to? What? The land down here. That's Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Shalamayla, the land up there means what? But that's not land, that's Shemayim. Atzilus, it's something in Atzilus. Malchus, right. Remember, everything down here evolves from up there. So if we have land down here, there must be something up there, which is the source of land. And what is it? Malchus of Atzilus. So Eretz Yisrael down here has Malchus of Atzilus shining in it, and actually it's a manifestation of Malchus of Atzilus. Number 30, I'll go to Gimel, Eis Gimel. Number 30, Anava v'Shiflus means what? Humility. 31 is a very common acronym. That's why I left it as an acronym. What does it stand for? Ava v'Yira. Love and fear of Hashem. (32) Ratzon shelamayla mitam vadas v'kleis hanefesh. Ratzon means will. L'mayla mitam vadas, above logic. A will that's not motivated by logic but deeper than logic. Kleis hanefesh means the soul expires. In other words, when it's a logical thing, it's limited, it's measured, it's calculated. It's not going to bring a person to sort of lose it. But if the will is so strong that it transcends logic, it's unlimited, and that could lead to Kleis HaNefesh. Yep. 33. I think the Baal Shem Tov once said that every time that he davens and after davening he's still alive, it's a miracle. And other people say every time they daven, I don't fall asleep in the middle of davening, it's a miracle. Two ends of the spectrum. 33. Yeshus v'gasus. Yeah, arrogance and coarseness. So the word yesh means an arrogant person, and yeshus is arrogance. I guess it's a noun. 34. Again, it's an expression that's used in reference to Yeshus. Shetefes mokem la'atzma. It means he occupies a space for himself. He feels prominent. That's another way of saying it. But he occupies space, like I'm somebody. Actually, once heard someone give such a speech, and he said he was a businessman, but he was talking about a certain issue. And he said, this rabbi said that, and that rabbi said this, and this chief rabbi said another thing. And I think, first I was saying to myself, who am I to say what I think? And then I said to myself, I am somebody, and I could say what I think. So when a person says, I'm someone prominent, it's another way of saying he occupies space, meaning I feel that I'm filling an important space. 35. Hahergish shemargish es atzmai. What does hergish mean in Hebrew? Anybody? To feel. Margish et atzmo. Feels himself. Right, so everybody knows themselves. When we say feel, remember that it doesn't mean I feel myself. It means it's an excessive, a very out of the ordinary awareness of self. Like it's about me, much more than what the natural should be. The natural way that a person lives is not like very excessively aware and aware of self. I just go on with life. There was somebody who told the story of a professor that was teaching students about the leg and everything in the leg, the muscles and the veins, and how when a person walks, everything is going on in your legs when you walk. And he gave a lecture for an hour and a half. After he walked out of the classroom, started walking, and he was thinking, okay, so now this is moving that, and that's moving this, and this is making this happen, that's making that happen. And as he keeps walking, he's walking slower and slower and slower until he stops walking altogether. He's like almost like frozen. He's thinking too much about his leg. He had to start thinking about the weather, about baseball, whatever it is, and then he was able to walk. So how did he walk for 50 years? Right, you don't think, when you're walking, you don't think, I'm walking now. I'm actually moving my foot this direction, that direction. That's called feeling myself. It's not a healthy thing. It's not a normal thing. And that's yesh. That whatever he does, Torah, mitzvah, something good, he helps somebody, he's full of the feeling of self. 36 and 37, they're all similar terms. They're all related to the family of Yeshus, part of the same family. Yakar ben Yatzav means he feels important in his own eyes. Mitzias Davama means he feels like he's something. Again, when we say something, it means something important. So you'll find in Maimorim different terms, just to be familiar, these are the different ways, but it's all about Yeshus. It's all the Indian of an excessive feeling of self-awareness, self-consciousness, self-centeredness, and so on. What? So we'll stop here by number 37. Dvora, you'll remember where we stopped? No more mistakes. Okay. You're very welcome. Yeah.
Yesterday we talked about ma, and it's not legal. Like, where am I? But it's like, it's